So let's talk about how to actually sign up for Medicare, sign up for Parts A and B, and the forms that you need to fill out because this can be really confusing for a lot of folks that are doing it for the first time. So signing up for Medicare Part A can be pretty straightforward. If you're turning 65, you just go online, you go to ssa.gov/Medicare and you scroll down and you hit I want to sign up for Medicare, and if you're going to sign up for just Medicare, then you click on the Medicare only button. So let's go into a tutorial on how to actually do that.
So the first step is we will go to our browser, and then we will type in ssa.gov/Medicare. And this will take you to the Social Security page that deals with Medicare. You're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and then if you're only applying for Medicare, there's a apply for Medicare only button. Just click on that, and then you can start a new application, which is in the middle over here. It says start a new application, and we're going to click on that, and then you just follow the prompts. You're applying for yourself, you're not blind, and so forth, and then you just continue the prompts.
Now, if you need to sign up for Medicare Part B, if you're turning 65 and you're going on Medicare, you can actually do that at the same time that you're signing up for Medicare Part A. If you're doing it online, there's an option for you to sign up for Part B as well. And then also you can do so by calling Medicare, 1-800-MEDICARE, or visiting your local Social Security office. The only thing that you need to bring is typically some type of identification, your Social Security card, and then just to keep things straightforward, we recommend that people bring their birth certificates, their original birth certificates, if they have them, or if you were born outside of the country, proof of your citizenship or naturalization, original copies of it, because sometimes they'll need to see it to verify who you are. And then also signing up for Part B. If you're signing up for Part B after 65, let's say you're working to 66, 67, 70 years old, so that you max out on your Social Security, or you really love your job, the forms that you have to fill out, there's two major forms you have to fill out. One is what they call the CMS 40 form, and the other one is called the CMS 564 form. So let's take a look. I have these forms over here with me. So with the CMS 40 form, that's the form that you have to fill out to tell Social Security that you want to sign up for Part B. So this is what the form looks like. So with this form, on top over here, you have to put in your Social Security number. The only really confusing part about this form is what they call the beneficiary identification code. So if you signed up for Medicare already and you got a Medicare card, if you're collecting Social Security, then it's going to be the letter A at the end. If you're not collecting Social Security, it's going to be the letter T at the end. If you're collecting under a spouse that's alive, it's B. Sometimes there's multiple numbers after that. And if you're collecting under a deceased spouse, it's going to be a D, possibly with a number after it as well. So that's what the beneficiary identification code is. And if you don't know what it is, just leave it blank, because if you have your Social Security number and it's your Social Security number, then they will find you in the system. Then you have to put in your full name, and it also asks for your full middle name, your mailing address, your city, your state zip code, and your phone number. And so that's pretty self-explanatory. And then you can just sign and date. On the bottom over here, there's a witness category. So this part of the form only needs to be filled out if you're signing for somebody else, if you're a power of attorney. So if you're signing for yourself, don't worry about this part. And then under section 12, where it says remarks, just write, I want my Part B to start on this and this date. And Part B always starts on the first of the month. So let's say if you're retiring in January and your benefits are going to end January 31st, then you want to write in, I want my Part B to start 2/1 of whatever year it's going to be. And then so that's how you fill out CMS Form 40. Now let's talk about CMS Form 564, which is the form that your employer has to fill out. So with this form, now if you and your spouse are both applying for Part B after 65, you and your spouse both need to fill out a separate CMS 40 form, and will have to have a separate CMS 564 form, even though you've been covered under the same work policy. So in this case, if you're the person that's working and carrying the insurance, so up here you write your employer's name, your employer's address, city, state, and zip code, and so forth. And then if you're both the employee that's carrying benefits and you're the applicant, then you're both the applicant and the employee. So write your social security number on both lines. And then your benefits office actually has to fill out the rest. And pretty much in this section, the next few sections, it's when you work for the company, when you are covered by the health plan, and when your coverage is going to end. And then it requires a signature from a person in your company that's not you. So somebody from HR, usually if you work for a small company, it's going to be the owner or an administrator that's going to sign the form attesting that you've been covered under your employer plan. Now, one thing that's confusing about this form is if yes, section 3 over here, it's has your coverage ended? And a lot of times the tense of this question can be confusing because a lot of times people are applying for their Part B before the coverage has ended because you need it to start when your coverage ends. And we recommend that you start the process 3 months before. It gives ample time for this paperwork to process. So what we recommend is that if your coverage has not yet ended because you're still working, it's going to end in a couple of months when you retire, just put has the coverage ended? No. And then on the next section it says if yes, give the date. Put the date that your coverage is going to end. So let's say now we're in October, or actually we're filming this in December. Let's say in December and you're going to retire in January. So write 1 of whatever year it is, and then on the side over here in the blank space say will end as of 1/30, 2000 and so forth. And then have somebody in your company sign it, make a copy, and if you're doing this form for your spouse, then your spouse is the applicant and you're the employee. That's the only difference. Otherwise, these two forms for you and your spouse should look identical if you were on the same plan. Another thing to watch out for is some folks, they switch jobs. Medicare wants to know that you've been covered since age 65. So let's say if you start a new job at age 66 and then retired at 70, this form from your current employer is only going to reflect your coverage from age 66 to age 70. From age 65 to 66, you have to go to your prior employer to request this form. I know that can be awkward for some people, but you have to do it. And if your employer went bankrupt or whatnot, you might be able to request a letter from whichever insurance company you were insured by when you were on the previous employer's plan to show that you've been covered, and you got to bring this paperwork to Social Security. Now, dropping these forms off. If your case is pretty straightforward, meaning one employer, you know exactly when the date is going to be, somebody at the company signed it, you've signed CMS 40 form, you can actually just mail this form into Social Security, or you can literally drop it off in the drop-off box at Social Security. However, we do recommend that if you have the time to actually go to Social Security, if you need to drop off these forms, take a ticket and sit down with somebody at the window to make sure that they look over your forms to make sure that you filled out everything correctly. Because what we don't want to happen, and it's happened before, is that if Social Security sees an error on your form, they won't process it, and they could, because of a volume, they could wait a week, 2 weeks, month or so to get back to you to request new forms. And if you're going to be retiring the next month or so, we don't want you to go without coverage, because Part B needs to start before you can sign up for a Medicare supplemental or a Medicare Advantage plan. So you can't actually sign up and activate those plans without the Part B. And then also, we do work with a lot of folks that have higher than average income. So if you're fortunate enough to be in that situation when you're working, you might face a surcharge based on your income. So again, the income cutoff is $85,000 modified adjusted gross, which is plus tax-free interest if you're filing single, or double that, $170 if you're filing joint. Now, if you make more income when you're working and then you retire, you're going to lose that income, and your income drops below that amount. What Medicare does is they look back 2 years to your tax returns to see if what your income is, and then they basically base your surcharges on that income 2 years back. Now, if your income moving forward is going to be lower due to loss of work, reduction in work, loss of a spouse, reduction in income due to loss of investment, or so forth, you've got to fill out another form. It's called the SSA 44 form. And the SSA 44 form, it's reasonably straightforward, but there's some things to watch out for. So with this form, on top over here, there's 3 pages. I mean, there's 8 total pages, but most of it's instructions. So the first 3 pages are the only important pages you need to fill out and hand in. So on top, write your name, write your social security number. That's the first page. Pretty self-explanatory over here. And then on page 2, step 1, you've got to just check off the reason why your income has dropped. So most cases, folks that we work with, it's work stoppage. So check that box off and put in the date that you're leaving work. And then next, step 2 is estimate your income. Estimate what your income is going to be after you leave work. And there's actually 2 sections, because if your income, let's say if you're retiring midway through the year, your income for this year is going to be a little bit higher because you still have half a year of income, and then your income next year is going to be lower because you don't have that full half a year of income. So you can estimate your current year's income, section 2, and then next year's income, section 3. And then on the 3rd page, you've just got to attest that this information is true. Put in your address, your phone number, and then the date, and then sign. Also with this form, you got to provide some type of proof that your event has happened, whether it's a letter from Human Resources saying that your position has ended as of a certain such date, or if it's a loss of an income producing property, then perhaps a bill of sale, or supporting income statements. And then if it's loss of a spouse, unfortunately, either death certificate, or if you get an employer to also write a letter stating that's the fact, then you can take the evidence plus this form to Social Security for them to process. Now, a lot of times people do everything at the same time, meaning they sign up for Part B, they hand in their SSA 44. A lot of times what we see is that, unfortunately, you've got to hand in your SSA 44 for the income adjustment after your Part B has been approved, and they see what your surcharge is going to be. So this technically would be a 2-step process. So that's essentially going through what you need to do to sign up for Medicare Parts A and B, as well as what to do if you have high income.